70s is tricky because you're already there. So people feel like, well, how do I both try to increase my resources while using them wisely? What's your main advice?
Main advice is make sure that you are staying on top of your investments, that you're rebalancing, that you have the right mix of stocks and bonds. Often over time, you'll see your stocks are growing much more quickly. And if you don't pay attention, you could find that you're way out of whack and that you have a much more risky portfolio than is really right for you.
What about required minimum distributions? People have to start taking this once they hit this age bracket. How do they do that wisely and in a tax-efficient way?
So this is one of the biggest things I see people make mistakes. Number one, not taking that required minimum distribution, having to pay a 50% penalty. Your accountant or the brokerage company that you'll work with will tell you how much you need to take. You need to, of course, then take it. Some people, however, only take the minimum. And it could be that you want to take more than the minimum so that you don't have to bunch up and increase your contributions later years that could skyrocket you into a higher tax bracket. So you might want to take a little bit more.
You do get notified, though, by your custodian, don't you? That you have to
You do get notified, but also I have seen individuals change their emails, have moved during the year where things can slip through the cracks. So being an empowered investor is important to know that you need to be taking it every year.
You say to rebalance your assets every single year.
Exactly. At least once a year. Think of it.
At least.
At least once a year. We actually see higher investment performance for people who up it to twice a year. And that's the ideal, is twice a year, but at least once a year. Because if you think about the ups and the downs, especially this year and what we saw in 2018, your portfolio is changing significantly. So you need to stay on top of it to make sure that you are really in a position to weather out the crazy ride that we're seeing in the market.
Two quick questions, if I might, and you can give me a yes or no on the first one. Yesterday, we asked our guest, what is the rough amount that a person should feel comfortable withdrawing from the corpus of their investments every year? What is the number?
4%.
Roughly
That's our
4%.
number.
So
That's
you
our
go
number.
with that, and that should continue. You should not outlive your money, which is, I think, everybody's biggest fear. The other thing is, I think a lot of people in their 60s and 70s think, Medicare, I'm set. I don't have to worry about my medical costs.
Yeah, no, it's at least $4,500 on average a year. But what we see is we see medical costs from there only go up. And particularly for women, we see that women paying much higher medical costs and long-term care costs. Women are 60% more likely than men to have to pay for long-term care. And if you think that you're healthy and it's not going to happen to you, 70% of Americans are going to have some type of long-term care event in their life.
If you're in your 70s, is it too late to buy long-term care insurance?
It most likely can be too late for you unless you're like the woman who passed me during the Ironman, who was 78. For her, I think she could have probably...
When should you be buying it?
You should be buying it ideally in your 40s and 50s. Oh. And if you're worried about early onset hereditary disease, you might even want to look a little sooner.
Can annuities help to give you a cash flow to use for long-term care if you don't have those policies?
Annuities can be a good fit. Annuities, the biggest thing I would say is look for low cost, low commission annuities. The good news is that there's more options out there today than there were 10 years ago because they can be expensive.
Just off the top, what does it cost for long-term care? It's different in different parts of the country, obviously.
Yeah.
But what should you be thinking of if you're thinking, hey, I may have a loved one, or it may be I who needs to go into eventually long-term care?
Unfortunately, the prices have gone up. You can be paying as little as $2,500 a year in premium, but I've seen some...
No, I'm talking about the cost of the medical facility itself.
Oh, the cost.
If you're not covered.
You're looking at a minimum of $200 a day. A minimum of $200 a day for that. So if you think about it...
That's $100,000 a year?
Yeah, it could be $9,000. It's roughly, we look at about $9,000 to $10,000 a month for the cost of a good long-term care facility. So the premiums you pay for a policy, if you're going to use it, are going to be well worth that investment.